Hello, and welcome to the Vicars Watch Dibley,
the podcast where three priests link our stories to those of a Reverend Geraldine Granger Kennedy and other TV vicars. I'm Kate.
I'm Jenny.
I'm Ruthie.
And I'm Dawn Roma French from the 80s.
We can't believe it. Today we have been talking to the wonderful Dawn French about all things Dibley and lots of other things going on in her life. So have a listen to our amazing conversation.
Well, hello everybody.
Hello.
What a flipping exciting blooming day. I can't even control myself. Don't know how to keep it all in. Haven't got a lid from my excitement.
Oh no.
You all know what we're doing this episode. We just teased it. But before we do that, what have we loved this week? Aside from what we've just recorded.
Well, shall I start?
Yeah.
Because it was announced this past week that I've got a new job. And the weird thing with Vicar stuff is that this has been in the pipeline for ages. I mean, Kate and Jenny have known about this for quite a while, but it was finally announced that I'm off, to not even be a vicar somewhere, but to be a vicar somewhere.
Yeah.
My role is going to be interim priest, and I'm going to a place called Hebden Bridge and Hettonstall, which is in West Yorkshire. So that's really, really exciting. Yeah. So, we're all moving as a family, and it's bonkers, but it's really, really good, and I'm really excited. And it's partly the fault of this podcast that I've realised how much I've missed doing the kind of other vicaring stuff. I get to do a bit of it here, but I wanted to go do it again. So I'm off to be a vicar. But
and we will follow you.
Well, you probably have to stay in your parish that you're a vicar of. But
We could do a swap. We could do a weekend
Three-way
where we all
swap
go to
round.
each other's churches.
That'd be fun.
It would be fun.
Confuse everyone.
Yeah.
How about you, Jenny? What's something you've loved this week?
I can't think about anything. I've tried to think about something. I'm so overwhelmed by what's just happened. All I've got is a candle, and I love my candle. Okay, something I've loved this week is a candle. I have to process because of what's to come. Dear listener, you'll understand in a moment. I just love candles. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm losing it. I've lost it.
Okay. The thing I've loved this week is yesterday I had a day where I felt like a proper vicar. That's because I did the whole spread of pastoral ministry. In the morning I did a wedding rehearsal. In the afternoon I visited someone who has a relative who's at the end of life, and in the evening I did a baptism visit.
Wow.
I was
Cool,
like,
the
at the end
Trinity.
of the day, I'm a vicar. I did vicar things. I talked to people about faith and God, and had to not tell people that we were going to be recording with Dawn French. We've been keeping really quiet about this. A while ago, we said people had asked us about it, and we'd approached her, and she'd said no. We didn't think it would happen. But then we asked her again.
Yeah.
She said yes.
Yeah.
And the reason we haven't been bigging this up is because we didn't believe it was real.
It's true. I think
we do even now.
because of titting about, I think she was like, I'm already on about 1 million podcasts. I'm podcasted out, girls. It's not going to work out. And then as we came to the end of this, series, because we are at the end now of the Vicar of Dibley, this is the big conclusion. We said, is there any chance? And how gracious, how generous of her to say, oh, God. Give my PA drop her a note and I'll see what I can do.
Yeah.
So you're about to listen to some dreams coming true, some fangirling out of control, some trying to pretend that we know what we're doing, but some
all
beautiful...
from Jenny.
Everyone else is so cool apart from me. Sorry about that. But it was one of the best hours of our life, and we really hope you enjoy this interview and this time with Dawn that we've got coming up. The original Geraldine Granger.
Thank you so much for doing this for us. We, when we first started this podcast, we were like, wouldn't it be nuts if we asked Dawn to do it? And she actually said yes. So the fact that you're here is...
I can't believe you
amazing.
do such a thing. It's crazy that you do it. I haven't listened to it. I have to admit that.
Don't worry.
Shocking.
Appalling. Have you not done your research?
I haven't. I never do any research. I'm just crap at it. I didn't do homework very well either. But I probably will now. Listen back.
Just to check
Not
what
to
we
this
said.
one, but to the others.
Oh, bless you.
Fab. Well, to introduce each of us, you can see from our names. I'm Ruthie. There's Kate. There's Jenny. We are all vicars in different places. In fact, it's just been announced that I'm taking a new job, so I'm actually going to be a vicar because I'm not really one right now. But anyway, and we started this podcast because we love the Vicar of Dibley, and for lots of us growing up, you were the first woman vicar that we saw, and we didn't see any others. And so we started this podcast to talk about it, and have just ended up talking about pop culture and TV vicars and what's it actually like being a vicar as part of it, and you know, the bonkersness that comes from it, and actually some of the bits that people think in Vicar of Dibley never happens actually does happen. And so to talk about that all with you. So we've got a list of questions to go through, but we're happy to just be led by you. If you want to say,
can I ask you first of all, just to be nosy, where are you all based then?
I'll start. I'm based in Herefordshire, just on the border of Wales, in 5 rural parishes.
Okay, 5. Blimey. Okay, yeah.
Scary. I'm in Peterborough Diocese. I'm in Elsbarton, which is like a little village between Wellingborough and Northampton.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
And I live in Rotherham. But I am about to move to go be more of a villagey vicar. So I'm about to move to Hebden Bridge in West Yorkshire, which is affectionately known as the lesbian capital of the UK. So I'm very excited to go and move up there. But yes, one of the things.
Did you know each other? Did you train together or something?
Yeah. That's how we met each other.
So back in 2014. But we've been doing the podcast for about a year and a few months.
But we met. It was the first night we all had moved to college, wasn't it? We just really clicked and it was just really nice to have lasses the same age as us, really.
Yeah.
Did you share digs together then?
No. First year, none of us lived together. Me and Kate lived together in second year, and then we all moved off to different places. But what's really lovely about college is that because you're all there and it's this really intense learning experience, you have these really close friendships with people who get it. So when you're off in Rotherham and you're down in Herefordshire and you're near Peterborough, like going, this person is being an absolute nightmare. How do I deal with them? You go, yes, I had one of those the other week. This is what we do.
Okay, so you share and help each other a lot then.
Definitely,
absolutely.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And Jenny actually married me, so
I did. Yeah. And it was my first wedding as well.
You or a
sadly
not to me.
Myself in the past.
Yeah. That was great, Dave.
Yeah, that was great fun.
How lovely. Lovely.
Fab. Cool. Are we all right to
carry on? Whatever you want to fire at me. I had a look at the questions and I'm willing to answer anything.
Great. Marvelous.
That's amazing.
Jenny, I believe you're kicking us off then.
Yes, I will if that's okay.
Yeah.
So we, as Ruthie said, absolutely love the Vicar of Dibley. We wanted to know, were you nervous to take on the role, knowing that it was a bit of a contentious issue? I've just been doing a bit of research of my own. So the first episode came out 10th of November 1994. So did you remember? Because I was going to say, I want to take you back to 1994. Were you nervous to take on the role, knowing that the first woman priest had only just been ordained earlier that year in March? What was it like at that time, starting to record and getting into a character that could potentially be a bit, contentious, I suppose?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, isn't it, that I didn't think for a second that it would be that contentious, because the church law was now law. So, and in fact, Richard had approached me about this prior to that. And so it had been cooking up for a little while, and he and I had been working a bit on the scripts. So it felt like a long time coming. And of course, we had to wait for the synod and for all the laws to be passed, for us to be able to go ahead, for it to be authentic, if you like. So I didn't really think that it was going to be such a big problem, because the problems had already happened whilst the process of the law was happening. But I was very wrong about that. Very wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't nervous. I was ready. I was really ready. The thing I was nervous about was taking a lead role in a sitcom, because sitcoms are notoriously high failure rate. You know, there's a lot of very bad sitcoms and very few good ones. They're kind of rare as hen's teeth. And you know, I'd been involved in the development of a few that had kind of gone by the wayside, and I just thought, I don't know if this will work or not. And you know, it was trying to live up to being a kind of Dad's Army ensemble thing, and I just thought, it's, you know, big shoes to fill in terms of good sitcoms. Could we pull it off? But if you could pull it off with anyone, you would be able to do it with Richard Curtis and with Paul Mayhew Archer. And so, yeah, I was really ready, and I have spoken about this before, but the fact is that if I was nervous about anything besides being in a sitcom at all, I actually didn't know if the character would be funny enough. Being the kind of centre and being the fulcrum for everybody else, I just thought, she's a bit boring. She's the kind of she's the sort of good one. She's the decent person. She's a bit of a good egg, and everybody else has got all the gags. So I really,
funny.
I was a bit jealous of everybody else's parts. You know, I thought I could play Mrs. Cropley more easily. I could play Alice more easily. I could see with the jokes for that. And I wasn't sure about playing her. And in fact, I was humming and hawing about it, and being a bit of a bletherer to Richard. And that's when he knows me very well. He said, well, we do have a list of other actors who'd be very interested. And he started to say to me, oh, you know, Alison Steadman might be, and Miriam Margolyes might be.
He bribed you.
He pushed me, really. And it was a good thing to do.
Thank goodness,
it made me realise. It's like anything, when it's taken from you, you suddenly think, oh, actually, no, I don't want anybody else to do this. And then I jumped in. So by the time I had jumped in and made all those decisions, actually dealing with some of the more contentious stuff, more political stuff, if you like, when it went out, just felt like we were on our, you know, I was in a band by then. I was in a tribe. Just of our show, but of women in the church, you know. And I felt a kind of, I never know if righteous is the right word to use. I think I get that word wrong a lot. But the right kind of, I felt justice, you know, that we were doing the right thing. And so there was nothing that was going to stop us then.
Oh my gosh, that makes me feel so proud and a little bit teary.
We warn you, Jenny may well tear up at some point.
I'm a sentimental one.
Have a bit of a cry.
Thank you. I tend to have a little tear or two.
I don't know if you realise just how much of an impact you have had on, I think, particularly young female clergy. You know, as we said before, you were what female vicars were to us, and you're very much a reason. You're to blame for us being where we are today.
It's your fault.
I'm just an actor, you know. Other people that would have done that, you know. And I think Richard always had, you know, he had an agenda for this, and it was the right kind of agenda. And he knows the power of television. Television normalizes things very easily. And so long as it's funny enough, people will come with you on the journey and then start to forgive all the things that they have the worries about. And, you know, it starts to just be easier, if you like. But we did have our measure of hate mail. We had, you know, some strange kind of challenges. But it dissipated pretty quickly. It dissipated
brilliant.
Quickly. And where the show and politics kind of joined was always of interest to me. And you have to be very careful. The BBC is very balanced. And, there were things that we did that pushed it, and we got in trouble for certain things, and we were criticised for going too far with certain issues that we were supporting and clearly supporting. And then weird moments happened, like marching on Downing Street with all the women vicars that joined us from Trafalgar Square all the way down to Downing Street, and going in and meeting with Blair to talk about Make Poverty History. And I was the only person not in a collar. I was the only fraud there. And yet I was the one talking, and it was very, not the only one, but I kind of kicked it off. And we had a very good meeting. I thought, this is fascinating. This is telly. It's a TV show.
Yeah.
But it was okay to push it that far, and it's okay to lend the power of a good character to something that is undoubtedly the right way forward. Why not? And on that issue about the character stuff, when I was worried about how sort of rather revoltingly decent she was, that's when Richard listened, and I said, she just really, please, needs loads of flaws. That's what
interesting.
When we think of all our favourite comedy heroes, they are people that are they are Basil Fawlty, who's massively impatient, or they're greedy, or they're vain, or they're lusty, or whatever it might be. They've got flaws, and she won't be real unless she's got flaws. So let's use the flaws for the jokes. And he totally went with that, and that to me made it then possible that she wasn't just the only sensible person in the village, if you know what I mean, which on occasion she had to be. But she was also a flawed human being who made her own mistakes, and sometimes was picked up by those you would imagine were bonkers, the other parish councillors and stuff, the mad ones, were the ones who taught her the lesson, and that's in itself is a lesson.
Yeah,
brilliant.
It's one of the things we talk a lot about on the podcast, actually, is the flaws of Geraldine Granger and how that just humanised her. And it's interesting that you've talked about actually the humour's added through that. And it just makes her a lot more realistic, because either vicars can be put on the kind of super holy pedestal over here, or they're the villain in Midsummer Murders. There's this kind of two. They're either a goody two-shoes or an evil villain. And the character of Geraldine takes from both. Well, as far as we know, she's not murdered anyone unless there's something coming up soon. But actually, to have that character that's flawed and makes mistakes and does things publicly is really refreshing to have.
Well, all credit to this babe.
Yes.
As well. Joy Carroll is an extraordinary woman, and she permission gave me to push it a little bit further. She didn't practically do that, but by being who she was and supporting us the way she did, and informing us and allowing me to come and talk to her, be with her, ask her any questions, be a kind of consultant and be an advisor for all the serious stuff. How to dress the altar for particular times of year, and what we say and what we do, things like the practical stuff like that, helping us to get the animal service, with the correct wording and, all of that stuff, and what to wear, when and how, all of that. But more importantly than that, to go and visit her home. And, when I saw her empties lined up, her many bottles of empty wine.
Oh, that's brilliant.
This is a woman, who lives a real life. And I was able to ask her, intimate things, what do you have a boyfriend? Do you sleep with your boyfriend? Do parishioners know? What do you, what time do you, when do you put the collar on? How do you wear it? All the what do you earn? What, what can you do? What can't you do? Who judges you? What do you use the church premises for? What are you allowed to do? Who's judging you? Have you had trouble with men not wanting you to be in this job, and so on? And she answered everything, and always has done, and is a firm friend of mine. And she also rooted all of her advice and all of her presence, which is all over that show, is rooted in her faith. You know, and that was something we had to not forget about the character.
Yeah.
You know, very easy just to make her a person or a funny person. But, you know, we had to make sure that everything that she did was rooted in something she really genuinely believed in. So Joy allowed me to ask her questions that I'm sure you guys get asked all the time about, you know, what do you believe and how do you believe it and why and how long have you and what about this then? What about that injustice? How do you square this and that? All questions that everybody involved with the church finds very difficult to answer, I guess. But she had answers for me that were massively convincing. And I just thought, yeah, look at her. She's sitting squarely in her faith. And when I met Kate, you know, when she came and did Comic Relief, I had the same experience with her. I thought, oh yeah, look at you, modern and forward thinking and lefty and kind of, but squaring all that with her work and with her beliefs.
Yeah.
Dawn, if you need 3 others, to fill that role, then baby, we are here and we're ready.
Always handy.
We were fortunate to meet Kate a while ago. She agreed to come on a podcast with us and talk to us about all the kind of conversations that some of the conversations that you had as doing the Comic Relief specials. And I think what you've just going back a little bit, what you said about Make Poverty History and the Comic Relief stuff, I think Kate's got a question that relates to all of that.
Okay.
Yeah, so one of Geraldine's big character traits that grows throughout the series is her passion for justice and the various causes that she supports. So we're wondering what the causes most passionate to your heart are and whether you'd like to talk about them.
Okay. Well, obviously, Comic Relief is a massive part of my life, and we were there at the beginning. You know, and the beginning really was prompted by Live Aid. You know, that's what the musicians were doing. So the comedians really were challenged to try and come up with something. And again, Richard Curtis and Lenny and, you know, Griff Rhys-Jones at the time and Chris Evans and us and Steve Coogan, you know, loads of people kind of kicked it off. And it's a commitment. Yeah. And I was curious to know if it would continue and if the baton could be handed on to the younger comics, because that's the only way it could have a life, really. But every year, or now every other year, is when we do the actual TV show. But in the interim year, we report back or do sport relief. You know, that happened well. And it has continued. And it means that really what we can do is what we hope we do best, which is give our comedy skills for the night, but very much guided by Richard, you know. But Richard hands out jobs to individual shows and will, you know, it's constant. He's the one who drives it without a doubt. I think it drives him mad as well. You know, I think if you were to look at every year, I would think 9 months of it for Richard is unpaid Comic Relief commitment.
Wow, that's so impressive.
Very unsung, and that's why he's such a tip-top chap.
Oh, lovely.
And he does constantly have to ask favours of everyone. He's constantly sort of kowtowing to people, and he's making sure that if they're making a series of Gavin and Stacey, that they put a little bit of time aside, even though it's, you know, a year ahead. To bit for Comic Relief and so on. And he's very good at persuading us all to write to the banks, because banks are very, you know, banks have a choice of which charities they're going to help out with, even with the counting of the money or the acceptance of the donations. And they're tip-top people in boardrooms. Decide each year. You go and you sort of audition your charity. For them, decide which one they will take, which is the sort of sexiest one that year and which isn't, and so on. So there's a lot of persuading and letter writing and all this sort of stuff that goes on with Comic Relief. And I feel very committed to Comic Relief, and I feel very kind of loyal to it, if you like. And as long as it goes, I'll keep going with it. So Comic Relief is one thing, and Comic Relief covers a whole load of things, because there's charities in this country and charities abroad, obviously, and Comic Relief also reacts to various disasters and things that are going wars and things that are going on in the world. So I'm very committed to that. I also, I'm involved with various little things, but one of the things that I feel very strongly about is, and it's possible, that's why it's so tantalizing, is to end female genital cutting in our lifetime. And I'm involved with a charity called Orchid. And Orchid was started by a friend of mine called Julia Malaraharaj. And she's not there anymore, but she started it, and I'm still involved with it. And it's a tiny charity, but that's involved with lots of charities on the ground in Senegal and in all different parts of Africa, and in this country where there are people from various different cultures that this practice still continues on our own soil, however illegal it is. And it has taught me so much, this charity, because of course, you know, it's a barbaric thing as far as we're concerned, you know, no doubt about it. But you can't go into other cultures and tell them that things that they've been doing for hundreds of years, thousands of years in some cases, is barbaric when it's a social more, and it's and you are ill-informed about why it happens and so on. It's not actually a religious practice at all. It's a social more. Imagine that. You know, just like foot binding was for thousands of years. But foot binding ended once everybody understood how dreadful it was. And once people decided for themselves not to do it anymore, ended very quickly. And that is what is happening. The movement against cutting of young girls is ending, but it's ending quietly, because you can't go in and, you know, privileged Western people can't go in and go, stop doing this. We don't like this practice. What you do is train people on the ground, and you inform people about medical issues. You go and talk to the imams of the villages who are fascinated in civil rights, even, which don't exist in their villages. And of course, if your girls in your village are not cut, they can't marry people from the next village. So it's a massive shameful thing. But unless there's a kind of ripple effect, and it's so wonderful to watch it, because there's so many abandoning ceremonies going on.
Wow.
Which Orchid is involved with. And of course, if this village abandons, the next one does, and the next one does. But it has to be the decision of those people. So the trainers go in, live in the village for 10 months, and they don't bring up this issue. They talk about irrigation, they talk about commerce, and they're all trained with this. Then they start talking about medical issues, health. And then this is introduced, and the fact that women die in childbirth, but, you know, because they're sewn up, and it's all very, you know, it's so hideous, all of it. And the men and it is men that are in charge of these are horrified when they realise what germs can do, and what, you know, how this has affected their women, all this. They don't want to hurt their women, but it's just that they've been brought up to regard this as the right thing. Anyway, it is changing. And as far as I'm concerned, this is one of the most exciting movements that I've ever witnessed, and that I'm, you know, in a small way back here, my job is raise some money, push money into there to train more people. I can't go there and wag a finger, but my job is to be here and to just keep the subject alive. And I went along with various other agencies to meet some judges at the Old Bailey a few months back, and that was fascinating, just see what the law is in this country, because whilst it is, and it is, you know, against the law to mutilate, well, they don't use that word because it's got judgment all over it, but whilst it is against the law to do that to any young girl, you won't get young girls or teachers in schools telling anyone about it, because that's their mum that would prison, their dad, you know. So family, it's a very complicated issue that has to be addressed with cultural know-how, you know. It has to be formed properly, which seems from a distance, you just think barbaric mutilation, end it now, and put anyone who does it in jail. That's what you jump to immediately. That's what I used to jump to. But now I learned more about it. I think, it's more sophisticated. It's more, you know, there's more concern and care to be fed into this. But it is happening. It is happening.
It's brilliant.
So that's a cause I care a lot about.
You can tell. You just
Shine with
up
it.
and we've gone very off track from Vicar of Dibley, but it's so lovely to hear about Orchid, and we'll definitely go and find out more about them.
Good.
Now, our list order of questions has gone completely out the window, but that's cool. We'll just roll with it.
Away.
I wondered about, recently you reprised your Vicar of Dibley character role for was it called a funeral?
Oh, yes,
funeral?
I did.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. That was phenomenal. This is a woman known for a while called Chris Hallinger. And Chris has got, is it stage 4? Is it stage 3? I can't remember now. She's got breast cancer anyway, and has had it for a long time and has been fighting it for a long time. She's a twin. She's young. She's vibrant. She's amazing. She decided to kind of arrest her treatment herself. So she has informed herself about herself. So she hasn't for a long time just sat back and passively had whatever somebody told her she should have. She's found out what she could get, and she's gone up to London and got a different kind of treatment here and and she's lived a long time, much longer than anyone thought she would. And in that time, she's used her life in the most extraordinary way. And she, along with others, she founded Copperfield, which is, the breast cancer charity, raised loads of money, saved lots of other young women's lives. Yeah. Frankly. So her life is phenomenal. But she called me up and she said, I'd met her a few times and been massively impressed by her and by everything she was doing and by her kind of, just her life-affirming presence that she has. And she said, look, I don't, and she'd been to lots of funerals, obviously, because she's involved with lots of people who are poorly. And she said, I don't want to have that kind of funeral. My family will have to do that. I want to be at my funeral. I want to be there. I've got things to say and I've got things I want to hear. If people are going to say fantastic things about me, I want to hear it. And I want to have a party. She's a proper festival kind of girl. And so that's why she invented this idea called a funeral. And initially I was a bit, oh God, this is tricky. But she's in league with these people called Legacy of Lives who help you to kind of set things up. So that when you conk, you just hand over to them and they know exactly what you want doing and so on. So with them, she arranged this phenomenal thing that took place in Truro Cathedral. And it was kind of halfway between a funeral and a festival. And there was DJs and rappers and gospel choirs and speeches, amazing speeches. I mean, I've never been in the presence of the person whose funeral it is, with their coffin right there that she wanted everyone to do the sign.
Wow.
And it was extraordinary. And her twin sister speaking to her best friend speaking to her, people that she's worked with thanking her a lot, and her getting up. And it was very irreverent. In a lot of ways, it was very cheeky. Yeah. And she asked me to open it as the vicar, as a surprise for everyone. So I had to be kind of hidden away. And it was odd. It was so odd. I had to find my castle. I had to find all the gear and kind of had to rent a mantle. I had to get all the stuff together and thinking, oh, my God, I've forgotten this. And my very best friend in the world is a girl called Jerry McNulty. She's my BFF. Yeah. And she played the part of the woman who came into the church when the marriage was happening between Hugo and Alice and stopped the wedding.
No way! That's so good.
She did that as a bit of a favour for me.
Oh, brilliant. Terribly sorry. Wrong church.
That's Jerry. And so I said to Jerry, I will open the funeral talking about Chris, but I'll be talking about the wrong Chris. I'll be talking about a man called Chris. Yeah. To come in from the back and stop it and say, you are at the wrong church. A bit like she did.
Brilliant.
Amazing.
So good.
We did that and it was great because, of course, it was a surprise to have her there as well.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So we started it and, with a few jokes. And Paul Mayhew Archer helped me, actually. I called him and said, look, I've got to do a little bit of an opening. I can think of a few things and this is my idea for it, but write me some gags. So he did. And And it was a wonderful, wonderful thing to do. I mean, you know, it seems like a weird thing to say, but I can recommend having your own funeral.
Having it before.
Yeah.
That's such a common thing, I think, at funerals, is families always say, oh, our loved one would have absolutely loved this. And that's how you know that it's been right. Yes. And thinking along the lines of kind of like, I don't know, thinking about life after death even, but I loved what you said about Joy and how you were able to talk to her about faith stuff. We were wondering as well, has Geraldine as a character influenced you? And I think we're particularly interested in, what about your faith and spirituality, if you don't mind us asking?
No, I don't mind.
What does that look like for you? And what was the impact of that? Has it lasted, especially when it comes to, faith and belief and stuff?
Yes, I mean, you know, I was raised a Christian, I think, but in a kind of very loose way. My parents weren't churchgoers particularly, but wanted us to go to Sunday school. Slightly think they wanted us to go to Sunday school so we were out of the house on a Sunday morning, if you know what I mean.
Really?
Yeah.
It's that old thing, isn't it? You know, parents get a chance to get together on a Sunday morning when kids go on to learn about Jesus. An RAF family, and so we lived in lots of different camps all over. So we went to lots of different Sunday schools and stuff, and I loved the stories and I loved it all. And I went to an ex-convent school. There were no nuns there by the time I was there, but I went to St Dunstan's Abbey in Plymouth. So church was part of it. We started the day with assemblies and prayers, and we ended the day with prayers in the chapel. I was a boarder, so, you know, we'd have the little chapel. It was very bonding thing that we had, and I definitely had that faith. That's how I was brought up. But more so in a kind of moral kind of compass way, I think. I don't think my parents were, I don't think they were brought up particularly with faith. I think they just thought it was the right way to be. My mum was extremely spiritual and really did believe in the afterlife and believed in an ongoing spirit, if you like. There was that. But then something sort of changed for me. I mean, if what we're talking about, but Geraldine teaching me stuff, yes, Geraldine taught me a lot about things that I know are my faults, like patience. I'm not great on that. Hubris, you know, some things like that. Forgiveness stuff, big stuff. But in my own faith, a curious thing happened, which was when my daughter was due to go to secondary school. She's not an academic, my daughter, at all. And I wanted to find a kind school that would appreciate the things she was good at, which was art and music and stuff like that, and not to belittle her or diminish her in any way. And the school that I found that was local to me, that was good at that, was a Quaker school called Leighton Park, near where I lived. So I thought, all right, what is this all about? Let me try and find out. And it was a big eye-opener for me. Because, you know, the headmaster at the school was Jewish, you know, and I thought, oh, what's that then? I thought it was a Christian tenet here. What's going on? But actually, it's very open. You probably know more about this than me, but, you know, it's very open. There's Christianity at the heart of it, but it's much more about the God in me respects the God in you, whatever that might be. So it's very inclusive and good, and especially good for education.
Wonderful.
For people who are struggling a bit, because Quakers believe that everybody's important, that of course it's great to have neurosurgeons, but it really matters to have carers as well. And we need to value everybody the same. And so we need to find the stuff that people are good at and encourage that, rather than this rather typical British education where you make people feel a bit ashamed of what they can't do. You know, it's about finding what they can do and not making them feel so bad about that. Anyway, I loved all that, but it meant that she was raised for those years in a kind of Quaker tradition. So she learned how to sit quietly at the beginning of the day. Wow. When they started at 11, it would be 5 minutes, you know, and it would go on till then. In sixth form, they can do an hour at the beginning of the day. Quite often just fall asleep. But and I really liked this, and I started to get involved with it. So then I became a Quaker.
How amazing.
I am, by convincement as much as anything. And so I joined Quaker meeting houses wherever my local chapter was. That's where I go. And I actually haven't been since COVID because we've moved house, and obviously COVID was Quakers couldn't meet. Lots of people couldn't. People of all faiths. And so it just didn't work for me online. It just didn't work. So. And I've moved house and I've yet to find my local place. And life gets in the way, doesn't it? I've got an uncle who's quite elderly and I only get to see him on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And so actually, that is the Quaker way.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter about going to the meeting house. It matters more to go there, and I can, I'll pick up on all that another time, or I'll move him to a Saturday if I can, and we'll do that on a Sunday. So that's where I am at the moment.
Amazing.
That's really interesting. So did that kind of how old was your daughter when you started Vicar of Dibley?
Oh gosh, she came to the set. I remember when she was about 4. I think she was about 4. She was born in 1991. So you know better than I do when the first episode was.
Oh, 1994 in November.
Yeah.
That was when it was released. So
3.
yeah.
We started. And I have to say, at the time, I was doing that show and Lenny was doing a show where he was a chef. And when she went to school, when she went to junior school, and they were talking about the parents and what parents' jobs are, she said, my mum's a vicar and my dad's a chef.
Oh, that's so lovely.
She hadn't worked out. She hadn't really worked out what acting was.
That's so great.
She visited me on the set and saw me in my dog collar, and she went and visited him on a set and saw him cooking. And so why wouldn't she assume?
That's brilliant.
Obviously,
sweetheart.
But great. So going back to the set and going back to that time, are there any kind of moments that you filmed that really particularly stick out to you, or favourite kind of memories from set, or like when you're asked about things and going, you're on the Vicar of Dibley, which bit are you always asked about the puddle?
Yes, what happens is my memories are coloured by what people remind me of, and they always remind me of the puddle. They always remind me of the Christmas dinners. People's favourite things become stronger in my memory because I'm reminded of them more often. But I would say that actually my happiest memories, really happy memories, of course, puddle and stuff like that is good fun. But my happiest memories are all the parish council meetings where we were always all together around a table. And it was always very funny, and it was very shared and very equal, and it set everything up. The only person that was missing then, of course, was Alice. But the rest of us would be together in those meetings, and so that was always very good fun. And everything to do with Alice, actually. Obviously, what she missed out on at the beginning of an episode, she gained at the end when we had, So, and I think that show, it's about many things, but one of the things it's about is that female friendship.
Yes.
It's a love story between those two characters who learn a lot from each other.
Yeah. We talked about this recently in an episode about the developing relationship between Geraldine and Alice. And at the beginning, Geraldine's kind of a bit more like, oh yeah, here we go. But by the end, like there's such a bond of friendship there and such a strong relationship. And I think we were talking about the marriage episode, and there's something like Geraldine talks to Alice and asks if she looks beautiful in her dress and all that kind of thing, and then Alice asks if she looks great, and she's like, yeah, you look $1 million or something like that, and there's no like you look great for an insane person, but actually just you look
well, see, that's the interesting thing about Alice. If you've got to remember that Richard Curtis also wrote what was it with Baldrick? What was that show called?
Blackadder. Blackadder.
Yeah, he wrote Blackadder. So he's very good at writing an insane person, a mad person at the centre of things. But I think that Emma Chambers brought so much more to that than just a dolt, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
Complete other kind of thinker, completely alternative thinking, complete innocent. So much in that character. Do you remember that character in Being There that Peter Sellers played? That taught you. That's a film worth seeing. It's
I haven't seen that.
Oral film. with a sort of savant at the centre of it, who teaches everybody something. And that, in a way, is what Alice is there for, you know, and she played it so beautifully. She didn't just take an easy step into being an idiot. It was much more than that, you know. It was somebody with a properly huge, big, good heart, you know, and everyone else trying to be so cool or moving so fast, having to learn a bit of a lesson from Alice, although maddening when she didn't understand stuff. But watching her relationship with Hugo and pushing it together.
Oh, so good.
Gorgeous, just gorgeous.
Yeah.
So, yeah, moments with Emma became favourite moments, and we were very good friends. So we were all good friends, I have to say, on there in different ways, you know.
Yeah. And I think you can tell that from those parish council meetings that actually, you know, this is a group of people who actually get on outside of set as well. And
I don't know if you ever saw the documentary that they made. I think it was on kind of extras on one of the DVDs, and that shows us as a group of friends, you know, meeting for our kind of read through and what it was like before the audience came in, and just supporting each other a lot. And there's a very there's a funny thing that Paul Mayhew Archer, who co-wrote Vicar of Dibley, is a very important part of it, and a bit unsung sometimes, not by us, but by people who forget that he was there. And he and Richard worked very well together, and Richard would say to him, "Look, could you go off and write 10 jokes about the window so that we can, you know, I need to reshape the story, or I need to drop this out or do that. Could you just do that?" And he would just come in with loads and loads of jokes all the time. Wow. But there was a hilarious moment where it was bring your son to work day, or whatever that is, you know, go to work with your dad day. And so his young, must have been 13-year-old son, Simon Mayhew Archer, came in to the read-through with him on this particular day. And Paul Mayhew Archer, who is a delightful, slightly nerdy man, who's actually got Parkinson's now, and I've never seen somebody so cheerfully accept his diagnosis of Parkinson's. He's written a whole show about it that he does in Edinburgh. He's remarkable. But anyway, back then, he brought his son to work on that day, and he was the only one who did. And so we welcomed this young teenager at the read-through. And Paul started behaving very oddly, not like Paul at all, just trying to be like a bit of a geezer and the person in the human, showing off to his son.
Sweet.
Letting his son see that he matters at work and that everyone respects him, and which we do, of course we do. But he took it far too far, and he put his feet up on the table where we were having the read-through, and had his hands behind his back like this. He was pontificating a bit. We were all kind of like, what? He's being a bit of a twat. Anyway, he did it so much that he fell over backwards. And anyway, I mean, we all laughed a lot. And I could see he was very embarrassed. It was hilarious. But anyway, the next day he came into work and he said, "Wow, that backfired, supremely backfired." He said, "I was in the car on the way home, and my son said to me, 'Dad, honestly, you are such a fuckwit.'" and so he became known to us as Fuckwit. Fuckwit. And Simon Mayhew Archer is son of Fuckwit, who now writes his own sitcoms.
Oh, brilliant.
Sitcoms.
Amazing.
So delightful things like that happen. So my memories are things like that. You know.
Lovely.
Oh, great.
And what about, so all these years where you have been the TV vicar to people and the character has, I guess, followed you around.
Yeah.
Outside of actually playing the role, I imagine you have had people coming to you thinking you are the vicar.
Yeah.
So what are the best encounters, weirdest encounters you've had where that's happened?
I have had people ask me to marry them. You know, and you think, I can't actually. I have had people asking me to turn up at weddings and funerals and stuff. And I've never really, I turned up at someone's reception once, not in the gear, but just as me. I did that for somebody that I knew. And I did this thing for Chris recently, which I was honoured to do. But I've asked people to exorcise. People have asked me to exorcise their homes.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, bless their baby.
Wow.
You know, you think pleased to see the difference between no, I'm not actually a vicar.
What?
I know, sorry guys. So that part of it does follow me around a bit. I mean, one of the joys that I would say has followed me is that, especially during COVID, when everybody was hunkering down and looking for comfort, lots of people told me that they rewatched it. And that it was their friend, and lots of people have told me, my mum was ill with cancer and, in her last few months, that's all she wanted to watch and stuff. So that tells me that it was a bit of a comfort blanket for lots of people, for lots of reasons. And I understand that. So if there's a joy about it that follows me, it's that. It's that, that it was such a happiness for lots of people, and it certainly was for us who were part of it. But it seems to have had a legacy, which I can't take any tribute for that. I can't take the credit for it at all. But I was part of something that I'm very proud that I was part of something that has lasted in that way. So that does follow me. Yeah.
We get emails from people who have found this podcast and say those kind of things, that Vicar of Dibley is their comfort blanket, that it's what they watch, and so I think sometimes I think about this, like, are we being kind of stereotypical Church of England, just a bit behind with the times, that we're mainly talking about TV series from the mid-90s, and actually maybe sometimes, yes, but for other people it is that nostalgia, and it is a comfort blanket.
I don't think it doesn't seem to date too much.
No,
I mean, maybe
it
will with time, but people tell me that their kids are watching it. I mean, the way I know is because people will shout at me sometimes on a plane or at an airport or at a whatever in a supermarket, quite often getting the name wrong, which always
Oh really?
People go, Vicar of Dibley. Oh, there you are, the Vicar of Dibley.
That's brilliant.
I don't know who I am, but okay. I take all of that quite happily, no problem.
So good.
Oh, fab. It's already been mentioned, and we've realised this is probably going to be our first explicit episode, because we wanted to talk to you about twat and French is a twat and twatting about.
Okay. Oh, are you a bit careful with language? Or I've already buggered that.
Oh, well,
we
knew this would be the case if we wanted to ask you about all of this that you've been doing. Because I know when we first contacted you, you said you had a big book that you were finishing, and is this the one that's coming out now?
It is. I've been doing a tour, which is called Dawn French is a Huge Twat. And I did it last year to kind of dip my toe and see if I enjoyed doing it, if it worked, if the audience enjoyed it. I did a one-woman show called 30 Million Minutes in 2015.
Yeah.
For a couple of years, and I got terrible vertigo when I was doing that show, so I didn't risk that again. It's something to do with the darkness of the audience and the bright lights on me and being on my own on stage and stuff. Something about that set my brain off, so I have to do this show in little bite-sized chunks so that my brain can deal with it. So I did I think about 40, maybe 50 shows last year, and I'm just about to go out on tour again with it.
Yeah.
It's a way really for me to talk through a career, but kind of backstage, so you might see me in Harry Potter, but I'm going to tell you what happened on the filming of that and what an idiot I was. And I've been in many ways in my life, as we all have. Yeah. And I just found it so liberating to be able to own my mistakes.
Yeah.
It's, while we're all busy filtering ourselves and selfieing and all of that, we're forgetting about all the other stuff, which I delight in. I love my friends who say, you'll never believe what I said to so-and-so, all their faux pas and their mistakes. That's what makes me love people even more. It's how we connect. It's a mirror up to ourselves. They're learning opportunities, and it's a source of great fun. To enjoy other people's mistakes and to share them and share the fact that we're all twats.
Yeah.
And I've used that word because it's acceptable to my mum. It was. My mum's not really acceptable. But my mum would use that word, and I knew it was an admonishment, but it was a kind one, And it's kind of done with hug at the same time.
Yeah.
So I find that word utterly acceptable. I know some theatres don't and had to put TW*T as if that helps. But, you know, and I'm aware that some people have their, you know, their limits with language and stuff. But for me, it's a kindly word. It's inclusive and so on. So because I was doing that show and I had many more stories to tell than I have got time to tell on stage, I decided to write a book that is a companion to the show with some of the stories from the show, but much more besides. So that's called The Twat Files, and that's going to be, I think it's
October.
That's right. So that's what I've been doing. I've been writing that and relearning my show, which starts in about 2 weeks' time. And I'm all over the country, so maybe you'll find me wherever I am.
We are planning on we would love to go together, but we might have to go to different places, but we hopefully we'll be there.
So alongside the tour and the book, you've also been doing a bit more work with Jennifer Saunders as well, so a
bit of titting about.
Death on the Nile as well.
Oh yes.
Yeah, that was great. Love that.
We did that. I mean, I couldn't believe that Ken Branagh had the courage to ask us to perform together, really, because if we're on screen, it's usually taking the mick.
Yeah.
Especially in a great, big, huge Hollywood film like that. You know, really, the temptation, we had to have a sort of bits on us. The temptation to misbehave is huge. However, Ken Branagh is quite a strict taskmaster and was on it with us and had great faith in us to deliver. And in fact, I talk in the Twat tour, I talk a little bit about how we hadn't properly prepared and how he picked us up on that. And so I was a bit mad about that. But it was a fantastic experience to do it. And really, we are great friends, Jen and I. We love each other very much. And we do Titting About as a podcast, really, to have
so good.
You know, we just want to be in each other's company. And we're very, we see each other when we know each other's family. I'm godmother to her children and all the rest of it. We do that part of it, but sometimes we want to have time just us, and Titting About seemed like the most perfect way to do that. And I've discovered an awful lot about her doing that podcast. Talk about our childhoods and stuff. And I probably know her better than most people, but there are things that really surprised me that I didn't know. So it's been really good to do it. Really good. Yeah,
I think we found that with ours, haven't we? Yeah. That we've discovered more about each other and just talking about life and ministry and love and just everything that's going on and admitting our mistakes and the things that we mess up on. As it just gives you an insight into people in a new way, and it's been
You've got a big job, you guys. It's a big as young women in the church. Which is it's a tricky old time for you. I'm aware of that. This is difficult. To get people in, to keep people in, to enthuse people and to convince and, encourage. Not easy for you guys. I understand that.
No, but I think we'd like to kind of finish with a thank you to you and for the whole team who came together to make it, who just normalised us, and the amount of times we all get compared to as Geraldine and all this kind of thing is
sorry,
lovely.
I'm not sorry.
One of the reasons we started the podcast was just to answer the question that we all get asked, which is it really like the Vicar of Dibley?
Yeah.
So now when someone asks us, we can say, we listen to the podcast.
That's a very good idea. And I mean, the show is about so many things, so I can understand why it would be possible to extract all kinds of different themes from it and elaborate on that. So I get that. Good for you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I had a bit of a, as I mentioned earlier, I tend to be the little sentimental, teary one. We had a moment about 4 episodes ago when, as we were looking back through every season, every episode, like our job now is to shepherd, pastor, minister to people. And we suddenly realised the penny dropped that is kind of what the character of Geraldine Granger had been doing for us, and that we were disciples of Geraldine Granger. I was sharing with honestly, it's true. It was a little bit shameful. Like, all glory to God, who is the ultimate shepherd, and his son Jesus. But Geraldine Granger just sits a little bit lower.
A bit of a shepherdess.
Yeah, totally. Because the only way, for example, I realised that the only way way to celebrate something truly is to scream and to run. That's the first thing. The second thing is that, before I got married, for example, I remember going, I'm getting married in the morning. Do you know what I mean? There are so many moments of our own personal lives and stories, even in ministry, that echo the Vicar of Dibley almost word for word. I've noticed in my ministry, maybe this is too far. Oh no, my fangirl is spilling out everywhere. But like even the intonation I use sometimes is it'll remind me of Alice, or it'll remind me of Geraldine Granger. And it's a legacy that we realise, it's been that character shepherded us, pastored us, and has been such a blessing to us as well, to give us a platform to stand on and a good place to start when it comes to ministry. And I think, I just wanted to say we're nuts about Jerry, but we're totally bonkers about Dawn as well. And just the way that you led that character and shaped it. I love what you said about the flaws. And just really grateful for that legacy, that comfort blanket. Good.
I mean, it's a show with goodness at the heart of it, and and kindness at the heart of it. And so, what's not to like about that? And I genuinely believe that it's left a proper place in people's hearts, and that's a credit to writers, performers, like you say, the whole team that bring it together. The la-di-das who inhabit the roles are just the fortunate ones at the front, but there's a whole team of other people, like you say, and there's a whole team of real people, and the authenticity of it is the key thing. And the fact is, Geraldine is just a human.
Yeah, she is. That's the most powerful thing.
Make the world a bit better as she goes along, which is exactly what you guys are doing. And I was looking here, I just managed to keep my papers down on my thing with something I stole from
that's so great.
A prop.
We're with you.
I'm owning up to a crime here. I properly stole this. I didn't tell anybody, and I can still see, because when you get things from prop houses, they put a little label on the bottom. And I put it in my bag and taken it home. How appalling is that?
That's amazing. So true to the character of Geraldine. Gonna have that.
I was going to say, Kate, do you want to ask your kind of final question? And then I think I've got one last one for you too.
Yeah. So we just reviewed really the last episode of A Vicar of Dibley as it was released. And then we also talked about the Women Bishops comic relief episode as well. There's been a dribble of the comic relief specials. And I suppose our question is, how does Geraldine's story end? How do you think it ends? Have we seen the last of Dibley? Or is she still living happily in the village with Harry? Are they planning to move on?
It's tempting, isn't it? It's so tempting. I think she's still married to Harry. What was very interesting was on the very last night of the actual show, not all the comic relief specials and stuff, but of the actual show. What they do with the set is that they take it away and usually burn it or whatever.
Oh, really? Wow.
It's asked for it to be stored.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I thought, that's interesting. He's asked for it to be stored. However, the unfortunate thing about working with a group of older people is that they're not here anymore. There is only James Fleet, who was in my house only 3 days ago because he was filming something nearby. We are the remaining ones now. That's it. There's only and I that live, and Harry, obviously. So I've got a feeling that part of the Vicar of Dibley is done, because it would be wrong to resurrect it without the beloveds. And we've also said goodbye to them in the comic relief special, which was so hard. But we remembered them. We even kept some of them a bit alive, but at a distance. People that have actually died. But to have a little memorial for Alice and so on, which was Emma, which was very hard. And we had, 20 takes. Get through it. Very, very hard to do. And so I feel like the lid is on that. However, if women are allowed to be bishops, why isn't she allowed to be a bishop? It wouldn't
see a bit more.
It couldn't be in Dibley, but maybe she moves to a city. Maybe I don't think the door is closed, but it's up to Richard Curtis and the BBC. It's not up to me. But I'd be there if he wanted me to be there. I'd be there.
Oh, please send in this podcast and ask him.
And finally, when we chatted to Kate Botley, she talked to us and she told us to pray for celebrities, because there's this whole weird world of celebrity, and she was telling us about death threats that she gets, and you know, she sees herself as very minor celebrity and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's a bizarre world that you are a part of. So we wanted to know how we can pray for you.
Well, thank you. And isn't it odd that I saw that you mentioned that, and I felt oddly guilty about anybody praying for me. I thought, oh, no. Our prayers need to be saved for people who haven't had the fortune that I've had and haven't had the luck and aren't as blessed as I am. That save your prayers for those people, because along with fame comes all these other blessings, as well as some other weird stuff that famous people deal with. And I've got a bit of a theory about fame, and it's a bit of a sickness, actually. People that, seek it, need it, and you need to look at why you need it, and you need to be sure that you're not looking for love in the wrong places amongst an audience. For instance, lovely to have it, but it's fickle and it's real, and sticking with your family and your centre and understanding yourself well is what you need to learn to do. And if you had to pray at all, it's for people to have that truth, know the truth of who they really are, and not be swayed along by all the other frothy stuff, which is lovely but not real. That I would say that when that would be the prayer, I think.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for your time. It's been amazing to meet you, and we're bowled over by all of this. Fantastic. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Vicars Watch Dibley. Thank you to Toby for editing our ramblings.
Any views expressed in this podcast are our own and don't necessarily represent those of the Church of England or any other organisations with which we are affiliated.
And as always, bless you for listening.
So a man goes to the doctor with hearing problems, and the doctor says, "Can you describe the symptoms to me?" And the man says, "Yes, of course. Homer is a fat yellow bloke, and Marge has
brilliant.
He's got hearing problems. Do you see?
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you.
So good.
We should have Alice that, shouldn't we? Like, that's funny, because he talked about the Simpsons. Oh, fabulous.